Craig Hodges. And everybody asks me, like, man, you gotta talk about Craig, you gotta talk about Craig Hodges. Well, to me, he's known by one word, coach. He was our coach up at Chicago State University. So we knew Craig quite well because he was out the league for about 2-3 years when that happened. And he was still trying to get back in the NBA. But going back to the scene of the crime, you have to know about Craig Hodges. He had an audition or a chance to become the Chicago Bull because his former coach, who was Tex Winters, who's a basketball genius, happened to end up coaching the Chicago Bulls, and he's very familiar with Craig Hodges. Now, Michael Jordan becomes bigger than life before everyone's eyes. His shoes are selling like crazy, and this is during the 1988-89 season, to where people are now starting to be robbed, some even murdered for like starter coats and Jordan shoes. So if you bought a starter coat and you had some Michael Jordan shoes, and it depends on where you were, you might get robbed for them. So this time and era, young kids are buying these shoes, and at this time, they ain't nothing like the prices they charging now for the shoes. And people were still being attacked, robbed, and all this other stuff. So Craig Hodges was speaking out against the crimes in the community, and he was always charitable and always doing events and charities, because he's from Chicago, he's from this inner city, so for him it's more personable. But he always tried to get help and assistance from other players on the team, like, hey, come to my camp, come see the kids. And he went to ask Michael, it'd be great if the kids in the inner city, the city you play for, if the Michael Jordan, your foundation, get involved, and, let's help do some things for the kids in the inner city. And Michael was like, yeah, that sounds nice and everything. I had people look into it. He's just like, okay, because he don't really handle that. He had people that handle his foundation. And nothing ever came of it. Like, other players came to show support to Craig, but Michael, and they were like, oh, well, they couldn't, an event like that wouldn't be able to have the type of security for Michael. And then Michael would talk through other people instead of talking directly to Craig. And then the message would get back to Craig, like, well, Michael he just can't go over there and do that, type of event. They don't have the security, and, it can become a riot. He just can't walk up there like you could, Craig. It's Michael Jordan. And he was like, with his foundation, we could put the event wherever he want to put it. And get the sponsors there, and then it'll be just like any other event he ever had. Let's just put it wherever, and get a venue and do something for the community. It's just the act. The act of knowing Michael Jordan, who's the biggest athlete in the sport, is showing his involvement and wanting to better the community. Kids are getting killed basically off a shoe that has his name on it. It's like you don't want to try to get some awareness going. So the thing that Craig did is he went public doing an interview and mentioned it. That he wished Michael Jordan was more involved in the community. The urban, the soft side and the community that really purchases and shoes is out there dying for. The inner city youth. Once he said that, the Chicago Bulls organization was livid with Craig Hodges. Now, this incident alone isn't what got him barred. Like, this happened, and things were still happening. You know, they still were, you know, a team. But the Bulls organization wasn't happy about it. So at the end of this season, there was already talks of Craig Hodges not going to be back with the Chicago Bulls. So Craig talking with the team, and they telling him different. Like, oh no, you're good. You're good with us. You got a contract. You're all right. Don't even worry about it. So he's like, well, okay, well, all right. Well, I ain't got nothing to worry about. So when they win the championship, and they go to the White House, and they're going to meet the President of the United States, it was a bit of a delay, but they had the war and all this stuff going on at the time. And the transitioning of what was going on with Iraq and Saddam Hussein and all of these different things. Here is Craig Hodges and his African dashiki he's wearing. And the league is like, oh no, you can't wear this. You know, the Bulls organization is nervous. The NBA officials are nervous because they're like, look, we don't want to give the impression that, you know, that this gives the bad message. You know, we're at war with the Saudis. This doesn't look good. The entire, and everybody else is going to be wearing suits. Now, they don't look at it as this is his religious beliefs or anything else. They're just like, look, everyone else is in suits. Why don't you try on a suit? So they actually got a suit for Craig Hodges and actually laid it there for him to wear a suit. And he's like, I didn't bring a suit. So they went and got a suit for him to wear. He still didn't wear it. And mostly his alignment with Minister Louis Farrakhan, you know, coming together, that the help from Charity Foundation, they linked all this together. Plus, he gave a letter to the president. Nobody even knew what was in the letter because nobody even asked him. It was just a pile-on effect. And he wore the outfit anyway.
Another thing is that, you know, along with that, is when we made the trip to the White House, I gave the president a letter and wore our garment, our African garment, to it. That to me was probably one of the hardest parts of looking back at it, to see how when you taught in elementary school, junior high, and high school, you taught to write a letter to the congressman, to the president. And when I had a chance to do that, it was perceived as me trying to be a militant and me not giving due respect.
Defiant. You were written about as, you know, somebody defying the highest you know, place of office in the U.S. Right?
But nobody has. This is the first time, really, that anyone has spoken to me about it.
Yeah.
To the standpoint that I go online and I look at it, and I'm writing a book right now about the issue, because I go online and I might see 10,000 issues about what happened to me in my career. Was he blackballed? Was he this? Was he that? And no one came to ask me what was in the letter and how it was received.
What was in the letter?
It was basically this. Dear Mr. President, I want to thank you on behalf of those who can't come to the White House. Me being from the projects in Chicago Heights, I'm blessed to be a champion. And as a champion, I want to champion the causes of those less fortunate. And I want you to consider the issues of poor people in America the same way we consider foreign policy issues. I want to thank you for checking the letter, and at the same time appreciate the spirit in which I bring it.
So it's a wonderful letter. Very positive.
No one ever asked me. No one ever asked me what was in the letter.
No one ever wrote about it too?
No, when people wrote about it, they wrote about it from the outside, looking at it from the outside, saying that what they heard is that I wrote a letter telling the president I was against the war. Because we just went to war against Iraq. I ain't about that. I'm about trying to make sure that people from the community from where I'm from are taken care of.
And so there are many.
Now, the president, of course, didn't give him anything but a smile and a shake of the hand, but word gave back to the league, the Chicago Bulls, like Craig Hodges must be waived, almost effective immediately. So, all of a sudden, they're on a plane, the league officials, and the Chicago Bulls, everybody else, they don't realize Craig Hodges has a sister. She works as a pilot. I mean, not a pilot, but a stewardess for the airlines. She's listening to them talk about what they're going to do with Craig Hodges. And it was like, oh, well, his ass is out. Yeah, well, I hope he finds another way of work, because he just got himself kicked off the team, because he's definitely not going to be a Bull. So she tells Craig, like, Craig, they talking about getting rid of you, like firing you, like you're gone. He was like, are you serious? So he calls his people, his agent and everybody else. He's calling like, hey, they're saying like I'm finna be gone. Like, are you sure everything's all right? They were like, yeah, no problem. No, you're not going anywhere. I wouldn't worry about it at all. And then, sure enough, he was gone. He was waived. And it was like, okay, the Bulls was upset. All right, I understand. I'll just go someplace else. So, all of a sudden, all these other teams and all these other players and stuff that are like assistant coaches and other players, they would love to have Craig Hodges on the team. He would have helped a lot of teams that needed somebody to come off the bench who could shoot instant offense off of the bench. So they were like, yeah, we'd love to have you come back, Craig. The next thing you know, it was a phone call. Hey, look, man, it's out of our hands. You know, we all got families. We got to feed our families, man, you know, so what you expect us to do? You know, and you're like, what are you talking about? You can't come out here, man. You can't come out. Don't even come to Seattle. There's no trial for you. You know, what? Like, yeah, just don't even do it. You're not going to be on the team. And then one of the coaches from the Bulls is like, hey, Craig, you know, I like you as a person, but I understand what you're trying to do, but you can't disrespect the league. Like, you talk to a player of Michael Jordan's stature the way you did about him like that, you can't bash the league that was never his goal. Craig Hodges' goal was never to bash Michael Jordan. He was just saying, like, man, I just think it's unfortunate. You know, I think it was still room for, like, let's do something together. Like, come on, let's do something. But it made Michael Jordan look like a scumbag. And they're like, yeah, you can't do that. So he had to be removed from the Chicago Bulls. Michael wasn't going to play with him again. That was out. He wasn't going to go through another season after he just had to go through that. So the bigger heads made that decision. But the worst part is the NBA making the decision to blackball Craig Hodges. And it's so obvious that he was being blackballed. So I think it's the same year. Yeah, the same year, the NBA decides that they were going to come to an agreement with Craig Hodges to try to work on getting him back on the team. They're selling him a dream that he's not being blackballed, just teams just don't want to put him on the team. You know, they just like, we don't have the space. We got guys now. We don't really, you know, need to do this or do that right now. So we're thinking he might be on a team next year. Like, he might be on a practice team. So the NBA let him participate in the All-Star weekend to defend his title, because he won 3 in a row, and they was like, he's trying to break Larry Bird's record. So Mark Price, who is a big obnoxious person at times, he's against Craig Hodges being able to participate. He's like, this is for players in the league. And this guy isn't a player of the league, so why is he, why is this guy in the league? I mean, in the tournament. He shouldn't be here. So, this is for players only. But it was a special circumstance because they was like, well, he's got a chance to go for the record, and it was all the NBA could really do for him. Plus, Craig's got a lawsuit coming. because there's no way he shouldn't be able to be on the team. And then Dallas wanted him, and then a phone call happened that they weren't going to be able to sign Craig Hodges. Every team in the NBA, and even Phil Jackson was like, I just found this strange that nobody wanted to sign Craig Hodges. Like, he couldn't come off the bench and hit a shot. And here it is, 2 years later, 3 years later, Craig is still working out, waiting on the NBA team to call him. And then he's coaching the Chicago State, Chicago State University, and he's playing in the CBA. And, he's coaching games and playing. Still trying to get to the NBA. And the Bulls at that time, they had like Jud Bushler on the team. And I told him, I said, he was like, are you kidding me, Jud Bushler? You mean to tell me I couldn't take that spot? I couldn't hit them shots. I know I play better than them right now. I'm like, there's a lot of people on their team. Jack Haley. He's like, you kidding me? All he does is cheerlead. I'm like, yeah, but he's Robin's homie, so he's on the team. And at that time, Craig was, he was incredible. Playing basketball against him, we used to play with Dre and everybody, Lee Cummings, everybody at Chicago State. That was back when the glory days, when people had some pride coming in there, but they wouldn't play on the actual team, but the people that came in the gym to play was better than the team that played for the university, which was crazy. But we had all-star players came in there, like Terry Cousins, Lee Cummings, Terry Cummings' brother. But he had that Cummings curse, they got that temper. But we had ballers in there. And we had Eddie in there. Eddie was in there at the time playing point. Him and Dre playing each other one-on-one. Every time they play a 5-on-5, it'll break out into a one-on-one. Yeah, Smitty over here hitting hook shots from like half court and 3-point. Sudi, not Smitty, Sudi, that was his name, Sudi. Sudi was hitting these wide hook shots, and all this stuff was going in. And I'm like, how is this? This is the craziest type of basketball I've seen. We had so many different styles and the way people played in that gym. And of course, you know me, I did my thing. I wasn't shabby at all, especially then, because I knew you had to be decent. Because if you miss the shot, forget it. You may never see the ball again. So you better make sure you shot went in, or you'll just be a spectator. So Craig Hodges, everybody had a tournament up there. Like everybody had to pick their 5 to run, and we were killing. Our 5 was just running, killing, shooting people. We was doing good until we ran into Craig Hodges' team. Craig Hodges was shooting from half court and like free throws. I'm telling you, free throws. Pulling up from half court. Drop them. And then Dre trying to show Craig that he can shoot. Dre can shoot. He got that one hand, throw it up like Dr. J. And it'll go in, but he's too selfish with the ball. It wasn't going to work. But he always thought he was better than Craig. And he found out the hard way he wasn't. Then he blames the team when they lose every time. Man, y'all ain't do nothing. Man, you don't pass the ball. So, self-destructive. But those were the glory days of the university. But as far as the Craig Hodges situation, it is what it is. Whenever Craig Hodges decided, or any black athlete speak up for the empowerment of black people, this happens. That letter said nothing derogatory. It didn't insult anyone. But whenever someone makes a stand for the empowerment of black people, the government show you that that is not what they're interested in. And why not? Why does black empowerment threaten them so much? Everyone else could say Mexican and proud. You got the Shamrock logos. You got everything up line. As soon as you talk about black empowerment, people freak out and it's terrorists, it's hate, and it's got to be stopped. Why is that? I'm out.